Thank you for tuning in to Chapter 13 of Control+Alt+Delinquents. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe. You're well over halfway through the novel, and I'm pleased that you're enjoying this story. Book 2 is also in the works, and there will be some short stories being published in between in order to keep everyone having fun until the next release. I'm happy to have created this journey for you and to have kept you entertained up to this point. Feel free to reach out and say hello if you get the chance. I love to hear from fans. Until next time, I now present to you Chapter 13 of Control+Alt+Delinquents. Jack and Candace sprinted toward Keith and Nettie, who were making their way across the street towards home. Nettie waved excitedly as they approached, her long brown hair bouncing with each step. Both Keith and Nettie were still clad in their sweaty PE gym clothes, and Keith's dark hair was still damp from their encounter with the water hose. Jack and Candace looked as if they had been racing to catch up to them. "Check it out, guys," Jack exclaimed, shoving his phone in front of them. Keith and Nettie peered over his shoulder to see a video of themselves dragging Kyle across the field and dousing him with the water hose from the maintenance shed. "They said he's going to be okay," Candace announced with a cheer. "His mother even replied to the post and wants to meet both of you." "Cool," Keith replied nonchalantly. "Cool?" Jack echoed in disbelief. "That's all you can say?" Keith shrugged, running a hand through his damp hair. "That's all I can think about right now. Not cool as in awesome, but more like cool as in, I need to get out of these wet clothes." Nettie giggled at that, along with Candace. "So are we still on for that karaoke bar tonight?" Jack asked. "I'll have to check with our mom, but I think we've earned enough brownie points for the evening. She probably saw what happened," Keith replied. Nettie pulled Keith closer so she could whisper in his ear. "I'm only at 36% battery life. I should recharge before we go." "Right," Keith nodded. "We'll shower and meet you there?" Candace let out an exaggerated sigh. "Aw, I was looking forward to hanging out with your sister. Come on, she's not even wet, and I'm sure your clothes are in that bag." Keith looked to Nettie, and she leaned in to whisper again. "If I charge for an hour, I can get up to 56% battery life. That'll give me 10.5 hours of operating time. If I go with her now, I'll be cutting it close because I only have 6 hours left." Keith nodded in understanding. "We'll only be gone for an hour. We just need to shower off. It's been a crazy day." "What's with all the whispering?" Candace asked with a curious tilt of her head. "Come on, we can be open." "I promise I'll tell you all about it," Nettie assured her. "Will you meet us there?" Candace gave a defeated half-smile and nodded. "Go enjoy your shower, you two," she said as she intertwined her fingers with Jack's and walked away with him. Nettie and Keith stepped through the threshold of their house, greeted by a sense of emptiness. Their mother was still out, and relief flooded through both of them, knowing they wouldn't have to face her just yet. "Looks like she's at work. Good." Keith breathed a sigh of relief. "If you go put yourself on the charger, I'll quickly change out of these sweaty clothes." He gestured towards the bedroom where Nettie's charging station awaited. All he needed was a quick shower, which wouldn't take long. Before heading off to charge herself, Nettie grabbed Keith's hand and pulled him in for a passionate kiss. He eagerly returned it before reluctantly breaking away. "I better get charged up right away. Thanks for having my back today," Nettie said with a grateful smile. "Anytime. And thanks for taking out Marissa with that basketball," Keith joked as he rummaged through his backpack for fresh clothes, tossing his damp gym clothes onto the counter without a care. The wrinkles could wait. Nettie bounced onto the bed and slipped her right hand into the induction charging glove, watching as the light turned from red to green, indicating it was now at 35% charging. Tubular Mechanics Industries TMI lab. Cassie was completely immersed in a heated argument over how her terminal software for her Python code had mysteriously ended up in a different directory while she was away. Her lab assistant, a young woman with glasses perched on her nose, sat next to an incredibly attractive and toned man who appeared to be in his mid-20s. He sat completely still, his muscular physique on display as the two women continued their debate. Suddenly, Cassie tapped a button on the keyboard, and the man sprang to life, jumping out of his chair and narrowly missing hitting the lab assistant with his swinging phallus. "Watch it!" the girl cried out, ducking to avoid any further hits from the unexpected appendage. "That's what I'm talking about," Cassie exclaimed. "The code isn't operating properly in this directory. Half of it isn't even being delinted." She turned to look at the screen. "Do you see this?" "I can't see anything if you keep trying to kill me with that giant dong," the assistant retorted. "I was only gone for 24 hours and the entire lab falls into chaos. When is this particular BoinkBot supposed to be ready for production according to our esteemed leader? Cassie asked, frustration clear in her voice. And how many of this model are we expected to produce? She added with little enthusiasm as she turned towards the 20-something assistant. The nerdy girl pushed her glasses up on her face and pulled out her phone to check her calendar. August 20th, she replied. Next freaking Tuesday? Cassie's eyes widened and her jaw dropped in disbelief. This android can barely walk, let alone perform sexual acts for paying customers. The limited memory capacity of this man is too realistic compared to an actual human. We're going to have trouble getting it to do something as basic as walking and chewing gum at the same time. The nerdy assistant couldn't hold back a chuckle, quickly covering her mouth with her phone to muffle the sound. Just then, the doors to the lab swung open, and both women looked up to see Harold Reinhardt, the research and development lab leader, enter. Cassie, check your X feed, he said as he approached them. Your son just saved a kid's life today. What? Cassie exclaimed, digging into her lab coat pocket for her phone. She pulled up a video of her son Keith and his friend Nettie pulling another young boy from an athletic track and dousing him with water. Oh my God, she whispered in disbelief. Cassie, may I have a private word with you? Harold asked, his fingers absent-mindedly rubbing his chin as he spoke. Cassie could already sense what was coming and stood up from her seat, turning to face the young lab assistant. Jenny, before you continue your work, please make sure to back up all of those important files. Let me know which server they are on, and then focus solely on solving this problem until all associated programs are correctly organized in their designated workspaces, Cassie instructed firmly. Yes, Dr. Cameron, the lab assistant replied dutifully, taking over Cassie's chair and promptly getting to work. Cassie followed Harold to another section of the lab where they could speak privately. So what's on your mind? She inquired. Harold looked around cautiously before leaning in closer to whisper. 2 nights ago, you paid for exclusive use of the lab and told me it was for a personal project, he began. And what I saw on the logs, it was quite unexpected. Cassie sighed wearily and placed her hands on her hips as she met Harold's gaze. Yes, it was a personal project that I covered all expenses for, including the time in the lab and materials, she admitted. There was enough hydrogel skin, carbon fiber bone structure, and wiring to create a small android statue. At first I thought maybe you were just feeling lonely, but when I noticed that certain materials used for male droids were missing, I assumed, well, lonely, lesbian, and petite were my guesses. But then I saw the video on social media. Harold showed Cassie a clip on his tablet. Cassie's eyes fell to the screen where she saw Keith and Nettie together. Adopted? Sibling? Harold asked skeptically. Cassie took a deep breath before looking back up at Harold. My statement still stands. It was a personal project that I paid for, and it's even stated in our contract that we are allowed and encouraged to work on personal projects using company resources as long as we cover the costs and do so on our own time, she explained. But you didn't make a sex doll. Is that really what I think it is? Harold pointed to Nettie on the screen. Harold? Cassie shook her head in frustration. Please, can we just keep this between us? Harold took a deep breath and sat down on one of the lab tables. Yes, I'll keep it between us. But you do have some explaining to do, to me and only me, for starters. That girl is tiny, he exclaimed. Well, most 9th graders are usually smaller in stature. What's your point? Cassie asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, for one thing, only I know about your little project. You managed to fit all of the necessary functions into a body the size of a teenage girl, along with storage capacity, power cells, and advanced programming that can fool an entire school of teachers and students into thinking she's a real teenager. And yet you can't seem to create a 6-foot-tall android with enough space to hold 2 of your designs. And he can't even stand properly or speak coherently, Harold said, clearly impressed, but also perplexed. Cassie let out a sigh of relief at his reaction before teasingly responding, well, one challenge at a time. Cassie's voice was tinged with a hint of secrecy as she spoke. My approach was different, she explained. You're right. We can't fit all of that even into an android that looks like an adult in his 20s. I had to make some sacrifices, cut some corners that can't be cut in a sex doll. It's something I prefer to keep to myself, especially since it won't work in this kind of application. With a nod towards the naked android in the lab, Cassie continued. If you can't fit all of what's needed into her, how is that girl of yours even operating? Off-site, the cloud, dedicated servers, she replied cryptically. Harold's eyebrows raised in surprise. So you're... He paused, searching for the right word. Adopted daughter, yes, Cassie confirmed. Is just a shell? Harold finished. Yes, a shell of a person being somewhat like a puppeteer by a massive storage transceiver system that I built and designed myself. Her onboard systems only consist of the batteries, the autonomic systems, sensors, and short-term memory centers. Her soul, so to speak, is elsewhere, and she's far better programmed than any sex bot. And just to be clear, I'm not a lesbian, and she's not for sex. Cassie trailed off, hoping her explanation was enough for Harold. Okay, Harold seemed satisfied. This is obviously nothing that the company can capitalize on. We can't have customers asking for petabytes of off-site storage. He paused before continuing in a more serious tone. I take it you faked the adoption somehow. That's technically a crime. But I can't risk losing my most experienced artificial intelligence technician, so your secret is absolutely safe with me. He patted Cassie on the shoulder, a rare show of friendship. And as your friend, I wouldn't ever hold anything over you either. Just make sure not to tell anyone else because this could make your life a living hell if anyone else got dirt on you. So we never had this conversation. Thank you so much, Cassie said gratefully. You're welcome. Let's put a program break in this conversation. Harold joked with programming speak that they would understand, nodding towards the naked male android in the lab. I know we don't do many male android sex bots. What's wrong with him? Cassie let out a sigh and tilted her head slightly in frustration. For starters, someone separated the code between different workspaces in Python, and my VS Code keeps reverting back to command instead of terminal. I have to find out who did it and get them to show me where they put the lines of code I need to slow his movement speed so that he doesn't walk around like C-3PO from Star Wars and accidentally kill someone with that giant junk you guys attach between his legs. As Keith and Nettie stepped into the dimly lit karaoke bar on Green Street, the sounds of laughter and music filled their ears. The bar, known as Rockin' Ricky's, was a popular spot for locals to gather and enjoy some drinks and entertainment. Scanning the room, Nettie's eyes landed on Angelica, Dean, and Chris, sitting at a circular table in the center of the space. They were engrossed in conversation and snacking on pizza and wings. Not far from them, Jack and Candace sat in a side booth against one of the walls. As soon as Keith spotted them, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of discomfort. These were his ex-girlfriend and ex-friends, now seemingly separated from the rest of the group. Jack noticed Keith and Nettie entering the bar and commented, "Looks like we've got ourselves a potential battle of the bands here." He nodded towards the other group in a teasing manner. Candace chimed in with her own observation, "Do you think they'll actually sing? I highly doubt Angelica has any vocal skills. She seems more like the type to just sit back and judge." As she spoke, she bobbed her head along to the overhead music that nobody was singing to yet. Jack laughed at her comment. "Nah, I doubt they'll sing. That section is usually reserved for the losers, but we can definitely rock out." Just then, a waitress named Mandy approached their table with a smile. "Hi there, my name is Mandy and I'll be your server today. Have you had a chance to look over our menu?" Before anyone could answer, Jack eagerly yelled out his order. "We'll take one large pepperoni pizza." Mandy raised an eyebrow at Jack's enthusiasm before turning to Keith. "And for you, sir?" "I'll have a warm water, please," Keith replied. Mandy's eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, someone's getting ready to sing tonight." Candace shook her head and chimed in. "I'll have a mountain splash. But don't get any ideas about me singing. It's not happening." She directed the last part of her sentence towards Jack, eliciting laughter from the group, including Mandy. Keith couldn't resist joining in on the banter. "Yeah, I highly doubt Jack could pull off singing Take On Me by a-ha." Jack playfully glared at Keith before turning back to Mandy. "I'll also take a warm water. Gotta keep those vocal cords in top shape." As Mandy turned to leave, Candace couldn't resist one final jab at Jack. "Trust me, you don't want to hear him attempt that song. It's painful." Everyone laughed as Mandy walked away to place their orders. The waitress, with her blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, looked Nettie straight in the eye as she asked, "And you? What can I get for you?" Nettie let out a small laugh and tried to brush off any questions about why she wasn't drinking anything. "I think I've had enough liquids for one day." she joked. Okay, but just in case you change your mind, I'll bring you some warm water, the waitress replied with a knowing smile. As another student from their high school took the stage to sing, Jack's expression instantly changed when he glanced over at the losers section. Angelica, sitting next to Chris and Dean, was laughing and pointing at the stage while whispering something into Chris's ear. They weren't laughing with the rest of the crowd. They were laughing at the crowd. Seriously, Keith, Jack said with frustration evident in his voice. It's so obvious what a bunch of assholes they are. How could you not see it, man? Keith and Nettie leaned forward to sneak a peek at Chris, Dean, and Angelica as they continued to mock the singer on stage. Although Angelica never laughed out loud, her eyes were glittering with amusement at being able to make her boyfriends laugh for all the wrong reasons. Keith let out a heavy sigh. I guess I was blinded by their popularity, Keith admitted. Well, everyone needs good friends if they're going to be subjected to people like that, Candace chimed in before taking a sip of her mountain splash. To good friends, all together now, Jack exclaimed as he clinked his glass against theirs. Good friends. I hope you're a good singer, Keith, Jack teased. Why's that? Keith asked warily. If you're not, they'll never let it down, Jack responded with a mischievous grin. No pressure or anything, buddy. Oh, they'll definitely let it down, Candace interjected with a sly smile. I managed to record them playing that prank on you guys, but they were also talking about some pretty sick things they wanted to do to each other. We could always send that recording to their parents. Keith couldn't help but smile at the thought of getting back at his former friends. I think I know just the song I want to sing, he said confidently before sliding out of the booth and making his way over to the DJ booth. As he chatted with the DJ about his song choice and how to access it, Cassie and Jack exchanged odd looks while Nettie smiled knowingly. So, Candace exclaimed, breaking the silence, you two have been together for a few days now, right? 3 days as brother and sister, Nettie clarified. But if you mean together as in... Jack interrupted her before she could finish her sentence. Oh, we mean more than just siblings, he said with a knowing smirk. We actually decided on it the night after Angelica's little stunt, Nettie added. Do you really think it was all part of her plan? Jack asked curiously. Nettie nodded, her eyes darting over to where Angelica was now glaring daggers at Keith while he talked animatedly with the DJ. She turned back to Jack and Candace, nodding again in confirmation. As Nettie spoke, her voice was filled with bitterness and resentment towards Angelica. She believed that Angelica had manipulated Chris and Dean, turning them into people they were not just for her own pleasure. Jack nodded in agreement as they sat at their table in the karaoke bar, waiting for the next performer to take the stage. After a few moments, the microphone clicked on, and they all turned to see Keith stepping onto the stage. The bright lights blinded them momentarily as Keith took a deep breath and addressed the crowd. Hey everyone, I'm Keith. I admit I'm a little nervous, he began, his voice betraying his anxiety. But I thought I'd sing a song today since it's a karaoke bar. He looked towards Angelica and smiled, though it seemed forced as his eyes narrowed. Jack noticed this and glanced over at Candace and Nettie, sharing a knowing look. I don't know what this is about, but I have a feeling it's going to be interesting, Jack commented. With the strum of a guitar, Keith started singing The Yawning Grave by Lord Huron. His shaky voice soon found its rhythm, and he sang with passion and emotion. As he reached the chorus, his gaze never leaving Angelica's eyes, the table shuddered in recognition of the meaning behind his words. Holy shit, he can sing, Candace exclaimed in amazement. They said that guys with Aspergers have surprises like that up their sleeves, Jack remarked matter-of-factly. Nettie watched Angelica closely, expecting her to mock or laugh at Keith's performance, but to her surprise, Angelica remained silent and still. Eventually, she whispered something to Chris and Dean before they stood up from their table and left. As Keith finished his song, he knew he had made both a statement and entertained the crowd. Nettie couldn't contain her grin as Keith stepped down from the stage. The DJ approached him, congratulating him on his performance. You've got pipes, Jack yelled over the applause. I think I know what that was about, Candace said with a smirk. Keith walked over to their table and asked if they had the tape he had requested earlier. Tape? No, Candace exclaimed, her voice tinged with disbelief. Welcome to the 21st century. I'll send you a link to the recording. You can cut off the part where they were talking about you, and the rest is more than enough to get her grounded for a month. Jack nodded in agreement as he took a sip of his drink. Yeah, let's see what Angelica's parents think about her blowdown skills when they hear the good parts. Keith looked confused at their conversation. What the hell is a blowdown? Candace sighed and shook her head. You're too innocent. It's adorable. If you don't know what it means, you don't need to be told, Jack said, trying to ease the tension. We understand that things happen at different paces for everyone. As good friends, it's not our place to push things on you. We hang out naked together in your pool, Keith pointed out. Clothing doesn't have anything to do with sexuality, whether it's on or off, Candace interjected. That's what sets us apart from the idiot crew, she said, referring to other classmates at their high school. I'm not saying I love you yet, Candace added quickly. But I know that Jack and Nettie love you enough to care about you, and that's why we aren't forcing things on you. It would be wrong. And understanding the difference between right and wrong is why I can't stand being Dean's backdoor neighbor. Admit it, Jack teased Candace playfully. You love him. Nettie raised an eyebrow at Candace before turning her attention back to Keith. She smiled warmly at him and wrapped her arm around him protectively in the booth. Guys, keep some distance in public, Jack reminded them with a laugh. Nettie winked at Keith and then took her arm off of her brother, placing her elbows on the table instead. Well, I do know one thing he probably understands a lot about, Jack suddenly declared as he jumped away from the table and ran towards the DJ booth. The group watched as Jack spoke quickly to the DJ before a lively and upbeat tune blared through the speakers. Jack climbed onto the stage, bouncing with excitement as he started singing into the wireless microphone. Shut up, hush your mouth, can't you hear you talk too loud? His voice was out of tune and loud, but he sang with such energy that nobody seemed to mind. It's easy once you know how it's done. Jack continued to sing, jumping from the stage to the nearby table. The DJ ran over to warn him to get down while the bar owner rushed out in concern. Keith, Candace, and Nettie all watched wide-eyed as staff tried to pull Jack down from the table while he belted out, jerk it out by the Caesars with pure passion and enthusiasm.